Hey, it's Jordan from Jersey here with a new comprehensive guide to time travel and parallel universes in Lost. And before I get started, if you haven't seen the newest episode of Lost yet, The Last Recruit, which aired on April 20th, 2010, you should probably stop and not watch this video. If you are current on Lost, watch away. I won't spoil anything that hasn't aired because I'm not aware of anything that hasn't aired yet. I'm being a good boy this season. So I was prepared to redo my entire time travel paradox video from before, but then I realized all of it turned out to be right. So really, go back and check out that first one and then come over here. This is going to be an updated version to explain some of the things that have happened since I did that first video. And that's partially why I'm holding this record. Kids just assume it's like a giant CD. That's more or less what it is. So I got a lot of good response to the first video, and most people seem to understand it fairly easily, except for a few little things. One was, how come they're not changing the past? Aside from the creation of a second universe, nothing ever changed. So let's think of time as a record. Time has a beginning, and an end, and everything in between. So if this record is the timeline of Lost, it has a beginning, the earliest we've seen, which is way off in the past, the 1800s, but the first real relevant date, about 1954. So let's say that this right here at the edge is 1954, and it has the end, which is, let's say that's around 2007, because that's where we are right now. If I play the track for 1954, or 1977, or 1974, or 2004, it's going to have a certain sound, whatever that sound might be. Let's just say it was a recording of everything that happened on the island during that time. Now, the record has a linear playlist. You start playing at one end, and you go into the center, and you play the whole thing, start to beginning. That's how it works. Except that our characters were able to play that record out of order, just like anybody who has a record could do, or a CD for that matter. Now you can play it beginning to end like a record is meant to be played, or you can jump around to your favorite songs. You can play 1954, and then 1974, and then 1975, 1976, 77, then you can go back to 1974. It doesn't change anything. Record stays the same no matter how many times I play it. Now, records actually wear down, but let's keep that analogy out of our time travel version. The record is going to be the same. I can play track 1977 100 times. It's always going to be the same. So even though our characters went back in time, they didn't change anything because the time was already there. They were always there in that track. Even though they didn't know it until they got back there, they were always there. They might have experienced the tracks in a different order from everyone else, but that doesn't matter because all the tracks were already laid down. They were already written. The record was pressed. It was done. They couldn't change anything until they did. So back in my first video, I explained how the hydrogen bomb created two timelines. Let's call them Side A and Side B. And time went on as normal in those two timelines from 1977 on. Now, Side A is a bit longer than Side B. Side A, it's all of recorded history. Side B, it only goes back to 1977 and runs up to whenever it ends. Because presumably, Side B is going to end at some point. That's what Desmond's been doing in Timeline B. Somehow preparing everyone for a merge or a choice or something. So why is Jack's hair longer on the plane the second go-around? Well, it's because time's different all the way back to 1977. He's just been doing different hairstyles since then. Why does he have a son? Well, time's been different since 1977. Everything past there is just a little bit different. Why are Ben and his father off the island? We don't know yet. They left at some point. Presumably after that bomb went off, I probably would leave the island too, and at some point after that, the island sunk, as far as we know. But the specifics of that, or how, let's say, Dogen got off the island, we don't know yet, unless he simply wasn't there yet. Ethan, at least we can assume, was evacuated on the submarine with all the other women and children. So let's move now to bleed-through, where one character from one side of a record gets to see onto the other side. Now here's a shortened version of the timeline. Let's say down at this end, we've got 2004, and at this end, we got 2007. Timeline A, Timeline B. Now in 2007, Desmond, in Timeline A, his consciousness was sent back over to Timeline B, like this, because he ended up in 2004. There he met his constant, got all his memories back, everything was cool. But here's where it starts to get tricky and some people get really confused. We've got Charlie B over here. Charlie B right after the plane landed. And he can remember everything that happened with him and Claire in this area of time. So the question is, how can he remember something down here that hasn't happened yet on the other side of the record? In a similar manner, Sun, after she gets shot, sees John Locke down here, and presumably is getting some memories of John Locke all the way up here when he's not exactly John Locke anymore. Also, Hurley and Libby down here get memories of each other, despite the fact that those scenes didn't happen until this block of time. And to the people confused by that, I say, don't worry. Just think of it like a record. Even if I punch a hole through the record so I can see the other side, all of each side of the record already exists. So if I exist right here, and I exist right here, parallel points, and I can see to the other side, it doesn't mean I can only see right here. I can see the whole thing. At least these characters can. Does that mean that Sun B, if she tried hard enough, would be able to see how Lost is going to end on Timeline A? It's possible. We don't know yet. But don't be thrown off by thinking, but that hasn't happened yet in the other timeline. It doesn't matter. The time's already there. The record's already pressed. So hopefully you found this video understandable, edifying, and not too convoluted. I tried. Once again, comments are going to be turned off in this video just so nobody gets inadvertently spoiled to anything that hasn't aired yet. Look, I don't want anybody to be spoiled. It's an awesome show, and it's final season. Let's go in with our spoilers blinders on. I'll see you next week for a new episode of Lost, a new review. Check out my comic reviews. Have a good week.